Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing my GT350. Now, if you guys want me to do like a full comparison with my 350 versus my GT500, then let me know. And then, as always, before we get into the review, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Powering the GT350 is a flat plane crank 5.2 liter naturally aspirated V8 that goes through a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, power outputs with this are 526 horsepower and then 429 pound-feet of torque. Now, before we move forward with the review, I do want to mention, if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Now, funny story, I just did a review on a GT350 Heritage Edition, also a 2020, and so I just want to focus on the cool things on my particular car, and then most of the video is going to be driving with this car, because again, that's what the GT350 is all about, is driving. So first off, the thing I like about every single GT350 is the little vent there, and then mine has stripes, which the thing I think is cool is you got this little like gray piece at the end of these stripes on either side. And then the front end of the GT350 is just super aggressive. You guys can see the little Shelby badge there in the grille, but I've always been just a big fan of how this looks. Now, coming around the side here, tire wheel setup is 295, 35, 19 in the front, and then 305, 35, 19 in the rear, so slightly staggered setup. Now, mine's a regular GT350, not an R, so it does not have the carbon fiber wheels, but you still have Brembo brakes, and the calipers are black, which just matches everything. And then I also think this little side cut here on the 350 is super sweet. And then here's the full side view, and for those of you wondering, this is a factory color. It was offered for the 2020 model year, and apparently it's super rare, which is good for me, I guess. Now, something that I kind of noticed about my car recently that I didn't notice when I actually took delivery of it is this little wing extension thing here. I guess this is a dealer add-on or something like that, because I just reviewed that Heritage Edition and it just had this part of the wing. It didn't have this like little extension part, but I think the extension kind of makes it look a little bit cooler. And then I've always loved the back end of the 350 and just like how the exhaust tips sit there in the diffuser. I think they look super cool. I think it frankly looks better than the GT500 back end overall, but let me know which one you like more. Now, something that I find interesting about the 2020s is they did like gray Alcantara here on the door panel, and then also in the center of these seats. You guys can see I've got the Recaros. You can also get comfort seats with this. I prefer the Recaros because I think they look cooler. And then again, since mine is not, I'm trying to figure out what to reach. Mine's not an R. I've got the back seats, so I've got that practicality, I guess. When the kiddo grows up, I can take him in. But yeah, I like the look of this, and even like with the Alcantara on the steering wheel as well, I think it's pretty cool. Before you ask, yes, I'm barefoot, and secondly, Now, another couple cool things, you can adjust the suspension on the steering wheel, you can adjust the steering feel, and then also the drive mode. And then look at the gauge cluster. It goes to 8,250 RPMs for the red line because flat plane crank V8. That's one of the coolest things about this car. And then just like the 500 and frankly like a upgraded GT Mustang, you can open and close the valves. This has launch control, which I think is funny because it's a manual. And also the launch control it holds the RPMs, and basically with this car, you just do a burnout because you have so much power. And then we got a Tremec 6-speed. Now, I love the feel of the shifter under the gates. I just hate the shifter head itself, so I'm definitely gonna probably replace that. But this is a reverse lockout for those of you that are wondering. Again, we'll talk about this more during the driving portion. And then here is the little chassis number on it, which is another cool thing about the 350. Now, I bought this car pre-owned. You guys can see it's got like just under 5,000 miles on it because I've actually been driving it a bit. So I actually don't have the original window sticker. I'm trying to get one printed out from Ford, but this originally stickered for like just over $60,000. But just like the GT500s, most of these were sold for over original MSRP because, well, that's just what it's like behind Fords. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off in the 350. You guys can see visibility over the hood. It's got a super long hood. Both the mirrors just do a blind spot monitoring, and then throughout the rest of the rear. And, well, let's set off. Okay, so initially setting off in the GT350. Now, I'm driving this back to back with my GT500. Again, let me know if you guys want to see a like side-by-side comparison with both the vehicles. But first off, on the daily driver stuff, The GT350 is not nearly as daily drivable as the GT500, as crazy as that sounds. Now, part of that, obviously, manual transmission, right? Automatic's always going to be more daily drivable, but it's more than just the transmission. The other part of the reason why this is less daily drivable is actually the steering. So this car tracks all over the place. The GT500 has slightly different suspension, and it has a much heavier front end, and so it just like stays planted on the road. Like, it's such a good cruiser. This, it's kind of like all over the place. So some of you might think that that adds to the fun, but when it comes to daily driving, it kind of doesn't add to the fun on that side of things. Some other stuff, like, I mean, you can close the valves, you can have it be quiet, all that kind of stuff. I always drive with the valves open, because, like, why would you drive with the valves closed? That's just, you bought this car for the thing under the hood. Aside from that, seats are pretty comfortable. You can obviously get the comfort seats. I think these seats are way cooler, and frankly, they're actually really comfortable. Compared to the 500, these seats are actually more comfortable, I'd say. And then rev match downshifting is really easy with this car. It doesn't have auto rev match like some, you know, other modern cars, but it doesn't, frankly, it doesn't need it, because it's so blippable. The turn-in's so crazy. The back end of this car just loves to slide out. More so than the GT500, believe it or not. Like, the GT500 has way more power, so like you could obviously power slide way more, but like when you just take this car around a corner, it, like, for some reason the back end of this car just comes out way quicker than the GT500. It's definitely interesting. A big part of the reason why you buy the GT350, and I'll get a better acceleration up here a little bit later, but is because of this engine. I mean, just, it sounds so good. The gearing's long, so it definitely takes a while to get up to redline, but once you get up to redline, it is so rewarding, and this car drives so well. Now again, even though the steering kind of tracks all over the place, which can be kind of annoying, overall, like, the suspension on this car, it's pretty solid. Okay, folks, this right here, well, in a moment, as you will see, is exactly why you get a GT350. Just listen to that engine. I'm trying to get in a straight line here so I don't end up in the weeds over there. Okay. This sound. This thing sounds so incredible. But the thing I want to mention is, you do not have to rev this all the way out to have fun with it. Honestly, like, so the GT500, I feel like I have to go all the way to redline to have fun with it, because like, you're like, the fun of that car is how fast it is. The fun of this car is the transmission when you're going from gear to gear, and the sound. And frankly, the sound between, like, I would say 2,500 to like 5,000 RPMs is a really good sound. Once you go like above that, it gets really crazy with the sound, and it's exciting. But like that, just that little burble you get there, that's such a, like, it's such an intoxicating sound. It really is. And again, what I've also noticed is this engine really likes to be like blipped in that range too. Like, look at this. It's like perfect. And see, look, like, that's just as much fun as going like full throttle in the GT500 and, you know, like going, well, let's just say pretty fast, right? So, summing things up, if I had to choose between one of the cars, like if I had to only keep one of them, I've been going back and forth on this for like the last, since I bought this, I'm like, seriously, like, which one would I keep? And initially I was on team GT500. Initially I was like, yeah, the GT500 is the one that I would keep, because I like how that car looks. I think that car looks better than this car. I think the suspension's way better on that car. The suspension's way better on that car, and you can just tell that Ford just put so much in that. Like, just listen. This engine. I love the override too. It's so good. But anyways, that car is better in every single way, except this has a flat plane crank V8, which sounds so good, and it's got a manual transmission. So here's what I have to say. The GT500 is arguably the better car on every single front, except engine and transmission. That's where this car just like really shines, and that's obviously a major part of the car. But you know, I think this might be, if I keep this car like super long term, which I think I will, I think I might actually invest in some suspension modifications for the first time ever. I've never done that with a vehicle, but anyways, let me know if you're team GT350 or GT500.